So in our activity, I hope you sorted your graphs into what we're getting ready to talk about are the four main shapes of graphs. So this first one is called the uniform distribution. And so what that looks like is it's straight all the way across. And sometimes we'll describe a distribution as mostly uniform if it's like, just barely, but if for the most part it's straight across, even though it's not exact, we're going to call that a mostly uniform or symmetric. We would also describe this as symmetric. You guys know from like geometry class and stuff, we're going to talk about here in a minute the bell-shaped curve, and it's symmetric because the left-hand side is an exact mirror image of the right-hand side, and that's what it means to be symmetric, is the mirror image, right? And so the uniform distribution is one type of symmetric distribution. So the next kind we're going to talk about is indeed the bell shape. So notice it's not perfect, and even if this guy had come up here or had maybe been there, it doesn't have to be perfectly symmetric. We might call it roughly symmetric at times when it doesn't perfectly fit, but the idea is generally it makes this bell shape, and generally the left-hand side kind of looks like the right-hand side. Not perfect, but for the most part. Later on, we will also call this normal, just FYI. So bell shape and symmetric do not mean the same thing. Bell shape is this shape. Symmetric means left and right are mirror images of each other. All right, this next one to a lot of people is really confusing. This is called skewed right. So it's called skewed right, even though the majority of the data, we'll call it a peak. The peak over here is left. Peak is left. And then this part out here that kind of drags out, we call that the tail. The tail is right. So you're describing the tail when you describe the skew. But basically everything's pushed to one side. All the data is kind of on one side of the graph is the idea here. All right, and then the last major category would be a distribution that is skewed left, and same idea. It's counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what you would think it would be. The tail is on the left, but the majority of the data is on the right. The peak is on the right. So, okay. So in this first U-try, it says figure 10 displays the histogram obtained in example 4 for the 5-year rate of return for large blended mutual funds. Describe the shape of the distribution. So what I want you to do is pause the video for a second and U-try, and while you're there, don't feel like it has to fit perfectly in one of those 4 categories. Just approximately which one is it the closest fit to. And then you can unpause the video and we'll see how your guess was. I said this one was roughly bell-shaped. It was roughly symmetric, not perfect. We're obviously missing some data here where you have a whole lot more data over here on the left-hand side. But the idea with the bell shape is that the peak is in the middle. Let's go back and add that to our notes. The peak is in middle of data. And the other idea is that you have tails on both ends. So let's add that to our notes. Tails on both ends. Okay, and yeah, we'll stop this video there.